Hi, this is Jill from the Northwoods. I had goals to Start with Small Steps podcast with a YouTube channel where I'll talk about some of the same topics, but maybe in shorter video clips, maybe where I can have diagrams or something like that, some visuals. Something happened to me that was kind of interesting. About 5 years ago, I got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I asked the doctor if I could try to work on it for a little bit, small steps, try to do things that would help diabetes clear up a little bit. The doctor didn't really say yes, but by me not making another appointment, it was an implicit yes. I finally decided to go back to my doctor, and it's just been too long of a time. And sure enough, my numbers got better. I lost some weight, small steps. I reduced my A1C blood sugar, also through small steps. It's going all right, actually. But the diabetes is still at a low level, but still persisted. What happens is that when you get into these metabolic situations, is you have too much sugar floating around in your bloodstream. So your body starts churning out so much insulin. Then your body starts ignoring the insulin. You're yelling too much, you're screaming too much, I'm not even paying attention to you anymore. Meanwhile, the little hormone messages going on in your head are, hey, remember me? I'm sending messages too. Body just can't hear it anymore. There's too much sugar and insulin flowing in the system. And now you're kind of stuck. And even in this situation, it becomes very hard, if not impossible, to lose weight. You have to have extreme low calories. But the problem is once you go down in calories too far, your blood sugar starts to spike. And now you're in this rat trap. You can't diet enough to reduce your blood sugar because it starts to spike. And you can't eat enough to keep your blood sugar from spiking, and now you're stuck. So I talked to my doctor, we did blood lab tests, and sure enough, I still have diabetes and I'm still stuck in that particular problem. I didn't want to go on insulin, and that was primarily why I was avoiding going to the doctor. Not very good for me. If you have diabetes, go to the doctor. It was bad form on my part. But he suggested Mounjaro, which is a weight loss diabetes drug. And I hoped, I guess, in a sense, that we could go maybe that direction. I had read some things. I had some friends that were talking about the ability to lose weight and how it nicely tidies up all the diabetes problems, because it is a diabetes drug in the end. And suddenly, I had all the feelings. I was nervous. I never taken a drug before on a daily basis. I was scared. I don't know what the side effects are. I was excited because maybe for the first time since I was 9, 10 years old, I could be a normal weight. This has been a struggle for me my whole life. And having this opportunity to get past it, I was downright weepy. I am not a weepy person either. I just couldn't even contain my emotions about it. I just felt everything. Now I picked it up. It's sitting there in my refrigerator. And my plan is for Wednesday to take the drug. I'll talk about in the next episode why I picked Wednesday and what the debating point is. But I remember back somewhere around second and third grade, my friend came up to me and said, do you know that kid over there? He's 100 pounds. You know what? I was 108. I realized that the kid that everyone was making fun of in school weighed less than I did. What were they saying about me? I never thought I was overweight, and suddenly I realized I was. It was horrifying, and it gave me a lot of pause. But I was a kid who went out and played and was always running loops around everything. I was excited. I grew up in the Northwoods. I was on a military base in Upper Peninsula, Michigan. I loved the woods, and I was very active. What happened all the time was my mom wanted to go to Chicago. Any 3-day weekend, any holiday that came along with school, we went to Chicago. I'm not a city person. I don't like the noise. I don't like the constant traffic. On the good side, my grandmother lived fairly close to Lincoln Park. And at least I could go to the park. See, there's a zoo there. There was Sammy the Seal. I had my favorite gorilla. At least it was that. I could at least be among trees, and that made me happier. But I still wasn't very happy being in Chicago. Also, I would bring a ton of books with me from home to read while I was in Chicago. And that didn't make my grandmother very happy at all. So then what I had my friend do is write me a letter lamenting the fact I moved to Chicago. So I would have proof to go to the library that I lived in Chicago now. And I'm a resident, so give me a library card, because my grandmother wouldn't let me have a library card that she would help me get. So I got a library card, and the books became everything. And as you know from the Start with Small Steps podcast, books saved me. I had a father who was an alcoholic, a mother who had a lot of emotional problems that stemmed from my dad being an alcoholic and being kind of a jerk about it to her. Everything was at war and in chaos in my life. And through the power of books, I was able to overcome some of these issues. Suddenly I had books, and I became sedentary. My grandmother lamented the books. She was big into education. My entire family thought it was important to read, important to have an education. But here was Jill, who was always very active and suddenly just sitting there and reading all the time. And she didn't like that turn of events. So I read and I read and I read, and I became a sedentary kid. And my weight went up and up and up. I then became the nerd. I was always the nerd, the overweight, funny nerd. So kids liked me because I was funny, and I told jokes, and I told people silly things, and I did silly things. I was a class clown. And I went through grade school. I went through high school. Boys didn't like me because I was overweight. And in college, my best friend, she's cute and sporty, and she was athletic. And so if they were seeing the both of us together at an event, they're going to pick her because she's active and awesome and thin, and I never got the boys. I just never did, and I wanted to, and I couldn't. And they just weren't that interested in me. So I got nerdier and nerdier, went to programming and development and computers and Star Wars. That's all the things, which is fine. They're all fine things. But my weight kept going up. But I think when you're younger, it's easier to overcome. It's easier to avoid some of the health problems associated with that. But eventually they started catching up with me. And then at one point, it looked like I had cancer. And I had surgery. And I had felt miserable for a long time. And I couldn't go places. I just felt miserable. Turned out that it was almost cancer, but it wasn't quite cancer. And so we were able to catch it in time, and I felt great for the first time in my life. I went out and hired a trainer. Her name is Heather, and she helped me lose 60 pounds. I was biking and hiking and running and doing all these adventure things, and it was going great. Somewhere along the way, I screwed up 2 tendons, the inner and the outer tendon in my left leg. I could barely walk. And then because I was leaning so hard on my right leg, I blew the tendons in that leg too. I was laid up 2-3 years. I could barely walk. Finally, it started repairing itself, and I started trying to get back on the bike, doing all the things, but my activity level just didn't go back to where it was, because every time I would go out, my ankles would hurt, and I was so afraid of destroying them again. Strangely enough, I ran into my trainer one of the times I went biking. She asked me how I was and how things were going, and I just let the whole thing go. I told her the whole spiel. You should have called me. I could have helped you. And she's right. So I went back to being with my trainer again and started working out. And in the last few years, took off weight. My A1C was high before. Like I said, when about 5 years ago, the doctor said I had diabetes. I got a finger prick thing from Amazon. It's a consumer type thing. But I could tell what was spiking my sugar, what was making it go up, and I made small step adjustments to my eating. And when I exercised, it all sort of affected it. But even through the course of all these years, I could never bring my sugar down low enough to ever make it work right. I did get my sugar down from 181 to 161, so that is some improvement, and I'm pretty excited about that. But the doctor was saying it's just not fast enough, and it's not good enough, and we have to act. We have to do something. And so you noticed when I did episode 195 of the podcast, I talked about shortcuts and whether or not that's cheating or it's bad to do, because essentially there were 2 lives in front of me. Small steps, and I could keep working on my weight and keep working on the sugar, and maybe hopefully do a little bit better than I had been doing. But we were talking that at the rate I was going, 11, 13 years, I would be done with my weight loss. Or I take one of these drugs and maybe in 2 years, I am done with my weight loss. Is that cheating? Is that taking a step too far? And I don't think so, because I think I have worked myself into a box. Someday I'm going to do a podcast about how not acting fast enough can close doors for us and cause problems in our lives. And essentially that's what happened. I did not act fast enough, though I fundamentally believe that this metabolic situation I was in was too hard to overcome. I just got myself in a pickle. So now I'm going to start taking Mounjaro. I hope to start on Wednesday and see how it does. So my thought is that I'm going to create a playlist channel for this YouTube channel for my podcast and just talk about this experience week by week. What did I feel? And start solving problems with small steps. Mounjaro, Ozempic, all these drugs are not miracle drugs. Essentially, it takes away the diabetes, which is great, because right now I am having to focus so much energy on reducing my sugar. That means I have to eat right away when I wake up in the morning. I have to eat a snack before going to bed. That's about 500 calories right there between those two meals. And that means there's 500 calories, 600 calories for the rest of the day. Now, with having the diabetes problem taken care of by Mounjaro, I can start focusing on weight loss better without having to be so obsessed with the sugar. Then, Mounjaro, as we know, like Ozempic, takes away the hunger cravings, makes those messages quiet down a little bit. I hope it does a little bit. I don't feel like I have many hunger craving callings in my head as much as I was having the sugar problem, which was causing me problems to lose weight. So I have high hopes that this is going to do great things for my life and help me lose the weight, maybe in a very short period of time. But there's still a lot of work to do. I still have to eat better. I still have to exercise more. I still have to take better care. I have to actually even pay more attention to my health. When you're on some of these drugs, you lose a lot of the calling in your head to go get a drink, go get something to eat. Instead, when you were food tracking before so you didn't eat too much, now you're food tracking to make sure you eat enough and the right things, and that you're drinking water throughout the entire day. Not drinking water and staying hydrated is one of the deadly side effects of this drug. It can cause significant problems if you don't drink enough water. And you can only take in water, I think, in smaller sips. So we're going to take small steps. There are going to be plenty of small steps we're going to talk about. They're just going to be different. And so I have no real intention of having a dieting channel, but I'm hoping that this experience and problem solving, there are going to be some problems caused by the drug. There are going to be some problems caused by the emotional side of it. The fact that I've never been thin. The fact that I wondered, what am I going to do when my Apple Watch tells me it's time to stand up if I'm not going and getting a drink or a snack? I have a Diet Coke problem. If you ever wondered why I talk so quickly on all my podcasts, I am hyped up on caffeine all the time. And now I'm going to be able to probably get away from Diet Coke because it seems to get rid of most addictions, including Diet Coke and other things. This is a new chance for new, smaller steps. So, again, I'm not going to really do a diet channel. We're going to have this sub-channel that is going to talk about my experience with Mounjaro, how it does with my A1C and my glucose count, and what it does with my weight, and how we're going to get healthier, be more active, and solve some of the problems the drugs may create. That's what we're going to talk about in this sub-channel. I hope you enjoy it. I don't know where it's going. My podcasts are written ahead of time. They are outlined. I read a book, and you know that if you're listening to Start With Small Steps. This podcast is going to be a little bit different. It's just going to be me talking about the issues of the week. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's a little bit different for you.